Hello and welcome to the Undaunted Man podcast. My name is Mark Johnson, and this is my partner,
Geoff Laughton.
And we're talking about how to stand firm in the face of feminine upset.
A topic that I'm sure most of you wouldn't have any experience or know how to relate to. So that's why we want to illuminate and help understand. So what you're going to learn shortly, how it shows up, how you can respond to it, and when nothing's working, to change it, things that you can do directly that have nothing to do with whatever feminine energy is coming at you from a woman or a man. So, welcome.
So, if women blamed men for their oppression, and there was some truth in that through policy initiatives because men had greater influence than women, then it stands to reason now that the tables have turned and the gap between male outcomes and female outcomes in terms of education and career has flipped, largely due to policies that favored women over men, that women aren't taking responsibility for the role that they've played in that. They actually blame men for that too. But going deeply into that, there's a part of me that kind of that feels some, that generates some emotion in me. But as I spent a lot of time yesterday thinking about this after watching that Galloway interview, and the problem isn't women. The problem is entitlement. Somewhere pre-feminism, where men and women tended to play the roles that they were suited for on average. And I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions to those rules. There obviously have always been exceptions to those rules. And I'm not saying they should have ever been rules. But where somewhere along the way in Western society, men lost respect for women's contributions and began to act and believe that they were entitled to women's contributions. That is what has now flipped. Now that, post-feminism, feminism put things into place, policies into place that overtly favored women and girls over boys and men. And, we can talk about the methods by which that was achieved. But we've come to the point now where women feel entitled to the things that males have traditionally provided without respect. Pre-feminism, men failed to respect women's contributions. Post-feminism, women now fail to respect male contributions. That's an example of that is why when you see in social media is a cesspool, but it's also filled with takes of, women being angry when guys are like, well, wait a minute, I'm tired of being disrespected. What do you bring to the table? And she's like, what do you mean, motherfucker? I am the table.
Yeah, and it's a huge problem.
So it's entitlement and lack of respect that got us where we are. And both sexes are equally capable of feeling entitled to the labor of the opposite sex, and they are equally capable of making themselves into victims of the opposite sex.
Amen.
So the whole battle of the sexes thing, really fun, cool 70s TV shows notwithstanding,
Right.
is stupid. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. And it's destructive. It's corrosive. And it is, it's undermining our ability to form and maintain healthy relationships and even healthy working relationships.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and another thing that's causing to get progressively eliminated might be too strong a word, but where I go with what you just shared is what has never changed is that we need both sexes and we need them to work together on as many levels as possible. And when you have that entitlement, which I'm seeing more and more from a lot of the women that I've been working with their husbands or partners, and in a way, a lot of the guys that we work with have gone to the extreme of tolerating that imbalance, but because of the conditioning that you're really talking about, it generates a lot of fear in a lot of men around, well, what do I do about this? And they doubt, am I really, like a guy, you and I know men in our community who work their ass off. And they actually do show up for their kids. And, really trying to hold up their, carrying their weight in their
Right.
household. And a lot of them are married to women that must have that entitlement that you're talking about, that not only don't appreciate or acknowledge the contributions, like, yeah, I'll give you some strokes, literal and metaphoric, as long as you keep giving me what I want and what I need, that I'm not doing anything to generate myself. And it's a mind fuck for guys that are in that boat.
Right. Well, and it's a mind fuck because of the socialization, especially since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a whole conversation to be had about the self-esteem movement in the me generation and how corrosive that was. But it comes down to that, the way that we've been socialized to chase good boy points.
Yeah.
Because most of our socialization as young men and boys was done by women. men, when you and I were kids, were typically still around, but they worked all the time.
Yeah.
And mom was much more likely to be home than not. So we got raised by mom, frequently by mom who wished who trained us to not have the same flaws as our fathers in their view.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, when no fault divorce turned into a thing and the divorce rate skyrocketed, then dads were even less present. So kids still primarily raised by mom. And then we go to school, and schools are, I think it's the last number I saw, 76% of the teachers in primary and secondary schools are women.
Yeah.
So raised by women, raised by women, raised by women, raised by women. And as Scott Galloway noticed, no male role models. And so, you know who can't teach a boy how to be a man? A woman.
Right.
And any more than I could teach a girl how to be a woman.
Yeah.
Can't be done.
Yep.
So, so now we have men that spent their whole life being trained and socialized and conditioned to please women. And the great irony of all that, of course, is that women are not attracted to people pleasing men.
Right.
They're not attracted to nice guys, as Robert Glover would call them. And so they're confused. The men are confused. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because they have been conditioned to believe that their value and their worth and their ability to be loved hinges on their ability to please women.
Almost at any cost.
Right.
Especially to their own self-respect and their dignity and their connection to their own personal power that every human has available to them, regardless of what's between your legs.
Right.
And, you know, I ran a group last night, and this was almost probably 90% of the meeting. We were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nice guys in the group who are married to women that are not bad people. You know, some probably have some psychological challenges, to be sure. But these guys don't ask for a whole lot. What are they asking for? I'd like to be appreciated for what I bring to the household once in a while.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd really love some intimacy. And it would be great if that could come and stem from how we used to feel about each other at the beginning, instead of me feeling as a man, not me personally, but the guys we're working with, that if I want to have sex, get sex from my partner, I have to make sure I have the right/perfect report card. You know, like I've earned it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, there's a term for that. It's called learned helplessness.
yeah. Yeah.
And so our primary role has become to empower these men and as individuals. Because the whole point, sorry, scratch that last sentence. Because the issue at hand is not that they're men. The issue at hand has nothing to do with their sex or their skin color or their IQ or anything else. It has everything to do with resting in their own integrity and recognizing their own personal power to create the life that fulfills them. And there is no such thing as a fulfilled life that relies on another person to fulfill it.
Yep.
And ironically, the more fulfilled you are, the more attractive you are to the opposite sex,
Right.
or the same sex if you're, in a homosexual relationship. But
Right.
the more fulfilled and the more integrous and the more independent and the stronger that you are, the more attractive you become.
Yeah, to everybody.
To everyone, right?
Yeah, we're all drawn to
Mhm.
people that you can feel are comfortable in their own skin. They know who they are. They don't apologize for who they are.
Mhm.
And they just do what needs to be done moment to moment to moment, which we've talked about a lot. And, one of the things that came up last night that I'd love your take on is there were a few men in the group who are all sharing a similar story of, they're actively working on trying to develop, communicate, and stand by healthy boundaries. And they're really healthy. Like, if you're upset with me, be an adult and tell me what you're upset about, but don't yell at me. Don't belittle me in front of the children. Don't, this is not unreasonable shit that these men are wanting and, in my view, deserve. I mean, if they were sitting around eating bonbons and letting their wife do everything, and they're just sitting on the couch playing video games and drinking beer all day long, well, yeah, fuck you. That's on you. But when some of these guys are really trying to start dialing back the nice guy stuff, and they're communicating to their wives in a way that, at least from what they share, seems reasonable, and the wives keep turning it right back around to your earlier point. Well, this is all your problem. I don't have to be respectful or nice to you. And so every one of these men are afraid of their women. They're afraid, which is really what we wanted to talk about this morning. How do you, as a man that is as connected to your masculine energy as you can be, not devoid of also being able to have empathy and, the feminine side is equally needed. But when you're constantly being disrespected and you know it, and it's eating you up, and then you realize that you're scared to death of your woman, which I can tell you for me, whenever I have felt that way, totally goes back to my mom scared the shit out of me when I was growing up. And so, that was a bear that one dare not poke. So these guys are trying to turn this around. And that, I guess my question for you is, if a guy is going to really start setting the boundaries and not backing off, and the woman goes into threats and, or just tries to be bigger than him. I know I coach guys, when that's happening, walk away. Just let her, rant and yell. Let her know, I'm not taking this.
Mm-hmm.
You come find me when you're ready to talk to me like an adult. Which, of course, sets their wives into, what the fuck? So when you are trying to, here's the real question. When you are trying to hold a boundary and your partner consistently refuses to respect them and rips you a new asshole because you're not respecting theirs, by the way, in their opinion, what's the guy do in that situation?
Well, the first thing is to recognize, as you've already told them, I'm sure, that there is never a reason or an excuse to tolerate abusive behavior, ever, under any circumstances.
Yep.
So the very first thing is know your worth as a human. Know your worth. The second thing, and this is the most important expression of knowing your worth in that circumstance, be completely non-reactive.
Yep.
Be completely non-reactive. And then, as you said, walk away. Not stomp off in a huff, not scream back and then go in the other room and slam the door.
Yep.
Walk away. And then here is the final and probably most controversial thing that I recommend guys do. Prepare to leave. Like, get your affairs in order and prepare to leave. Because that is also a crucially important expression of knowing your worth. I mean, we see this stuff all over social media all the time. I mean, it's actually unbelievable to me, and to the point where I half wonder whether these things are staged. But there's women on Instagram and TikTok is making videos saying it's okay to leave a great guy if you're unhappy. Okay. So you mean the guy can be doing everything right and you're still going to leave him? So, this is a slight tangent, but why would any man put himself in that position? I mean, it's absurd. So be prepared, start making preparations to leave. Get your affairs in order. Get ready to leave. And that I mean seriously, like figure out the finances, call an attorney, be ready to walk. Because it's, it might cost you some money. But if you wait 5 or 10 or 20 more years, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And it's also going to cost you that 5 or 10 or 20 years of your life that you can never get back. You can always make more money.
Right.
Money is replaceable. No problem. Time is not. Self-respect is not.
Yeah.
Those are the key things. And that the energetic shift that comes from knowing your worth, being non-reactive to the incoming abuse, and actually taking action to prepare to leave will serve as an unbelievable wake-up call for your partner.
Yep.
And it will level the balance of power in the relationship. Because the one thing that's true is that the partner that gets away with the abusive behavior has all the power. That's an element of learned helplessness. And why would anyone, man or woman, want to stay in an abusive relationship.
Yeah,
And why
certainly
would they want to
lots of
stay in a relationship where they are powerless?
Yeah.
I mean, we heard about this stuff in the news for years, because I still remember when it kind of made the news that women when women had abusive husbands, there were women out there that struggled to leave their abusive husbands, and not only struggled to leave, but would voluntarily go back. And I remember as a young guy being completely blown away by that, because I just couldn't understand it. Now I understand the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
And it's the same psychology that keeps men in abusive relationships. Men do the same thing. And any man that is too fearful to know his worth and stand up to an abusive partner is in the same position as those women that we heard about back in the 80s, when this first became like a thing that was in the public awareness.
Yeah.
And it was tragic when we were talking about women going back to their abusive husbands in the 80s, and it's tragic now. Even though I would make the argument that most of the mainstream media doesn't actually give a shit about men staying in abusive relationships in the way that they did about women back when this became a public issue.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
and
then, go
there's
ahead.
another
Sorry.
variable in there I want a presence. Because I agree with you. If you just keep crying wolf and your partner knows you and can feel you enough to know that you're huffing and puffing, but there's no real substance to what you're saying. When you have kids, which with all the men I'm thinking of right now, they all have children. So I'm not soft pedaling that if you need to walk away, for your kids, it has impact. But here's the thing I've been telling my clients for years, which came from many, many years of doing workshops with people trying to heal their family of origin scars. I can't tell you how the percentage was surprisingly high of people that when they were getting down to airing their wounds with their parents, one of the most prevalent was they stayed together for us.
Hmm.
And all that did for us was frequent, if not daily, getting to overhear them treat each other like shit. And we, like all kids will up to a certain point, we thought we were the problem. And then we felt like we had to take sides. And so it puts your children, divorce is difficult, period. But I can definitely, I'm a firm believer that if you stay together because you don't want to put your kids through that, you're robbing your kids, number one, of a role model that, if things just aren't working and you've given it every really best shot you have, and it just is clear you're not meant to be together, your kids would get the benefit. Yes, it'd be hard sharing time, but they get the benefit of, girls get the benefit if it's the mother being, mistreated by the dad, of a woman being in her power. But the sons, a lot of what Galloway was talking about in that piece, is that reverse isn't happening. Men keep, so sons need to have their dads model, I'm not going to tolerate disrespect, contempt, all that. And every kid wants their parents to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly the majority of kids, they'd rather have two really happy parents who don't live together and are with partners that, hopefully would be a better match. So I just want to address, I'm not the first time it gets tough, leave. But with the cases that you and I personally coach men in,
Mm-hmm.
all of them have been putting up with it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's teaching your children is not good. Teach
Right.
them
Yeah.
self-responsibility and self-empowerment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that when I talk to men about this stuff, that's they'll bring that up a lot. And my first response is always, what are you modeling for your
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah.
So your daughter is learning that relationships are all about women abusing men. Or your son learns that the way to be in a relationship is to be weak and to tolerate abuse. What are you modeling for your kids? Now, I'm not a proponent of divorce because divorce has devastating impact on kids. There's no question about that.
Yep.
But you also make a great point that staying together for the kids when you're miserable and the couple involved chooses to remain miserable, I mean, you're not really helping the kids that much, or you're just creating different problems, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other piece of this, and so there is a really important part of this, and that is that when men have followed that advice and gone through the process, because there's a process. Some men simply don't know their worth and they have to learn it.
Right.
And so there's some healing and some work that is involved in learning your worth if you don't already know it. Learning to be non-reactive is a skill unto itself when you're being screamed at or insulted or treated with contempt. So there's some skill development here, and there's some personal development here in order to land there. And then, so just those two things alone shift the dynamic in the relationship a lot.
Yep.
And then once you start making preparations, once you've got that mindset that I'm not tolerating this, and you start making the preparations, the shift in the power dynamic frequently, not always, frequently solves the problems in the relationship. Because what we know is that, again, on average, women crave safety. The feminine craves safety. And there is not much that is more threatening to a feminine woman than a weak man, because weak men do not provide safety. And so as you learn your worth and live in integrity with that understanding, like, wow, I've got value. And as you learn to be non-reactive in the face of that feminine upset, you intentionally or unintentionally start to provide the emotional safety that your partner is looking for.
Yep.
And as she feels safer, she'll be happier with you. She'll be more attracted to you. It's not a magic bullet to solve relationship problems, but it's kind of it is absolutely the first requirement of solving relationship problems. Nothing else will work. You can go to relationship counseling, you can do therapy, you can go on retreats, you can spend money and time endlessly And you might as well pile it all up, pile that money up in the center of your living room and light it on fire for heat in the winter for all the value you'll get out of it. If you don't know your worth, and if you aren't comfortable enough in your own skin that you can be non-reactive in the face of someone else's upset, because why would you give anyone the power to upset you?
Yeah. Well, and two other things to that. One being that a challenge for at least a lot of the men in our community to reconnecting to their self-worth. A lot of them, their dads were weak or even not even around. So there's not a lot of role models for even knowing what your self-worth might be. And if you grew up with a mother who took her unhappiness with her husband or partner out on you, the boy, or made you their surrogate spouse when you were a kid, then you literally don't have a frame of reference for, as a man and a human being, what is my worth? And that is why, one of the many reasons why communities of men, ours and all the other ones out there, that are genuinely interested in empowering men to reconnect with and re-own their worth, you are not going to get that hanging out with nothing but women, right? We need other men to reflect that. And I'm a poster child for this. I did that shit for years. And the first time I was in a group of 80 men and saw that, wow, these men know who they are. So you need men, if nothing else, to be able to reflect to you what they see your worth is. That's one of my favorite parts of any meeting, of any of our groups, is a guy will get, really raw and transparent, open up, and he gets non-coddling feedback from his brothers in the circle. Yeah, you'll get feedback about where you have your head up your ass, but you also get a lot of feedback for what's amazing about you. And I want to be clear, that worth needs to be generated internally, but when the pilot light is out, figuratively speaking, then a strong circle of men who see you're good, you're bad, and you're ugly, and they reflect it to you, then you can relight your inner pilot light. And if there's a big gusty day and it gets slow or blows out, you've got your men's tribe that reminds you, go back in here, relight it. But the other element in here is, well, I just thought of two things. And this is something that, you've done on our Silent Summit retreats, which, by the way, if you hear Silent Summit, what does that mean? Go to theundauntedman.com and click on the link for Silent Summits. Anyway, one of the things that you've done in every one of those is to invite men to look at men they do respect. If they didn't have a dad around, or their dad, just wasn't strong enough, to look for people, public figures, cinematic character, the energy signature that you can feel deep inside. I want that back. Or if I never had it, I want to develop it. And then you give as much attention every day as you can to embodying that energy. And there's a degree of fake it till you make it that inevitably comes up in my experience. And that's okay. And then eventually, I mean, this is how I got to wherever I am as a man, is hanging out with a variety of really good men, some really bad men, and deciding what felt right for me. And then I would emulate it. And then ultimately, as I got more confident in who I am and my worth, I was able to have literally my own version that's authentically me. The other thing I wanted to say is that Mark used the word a few times, abuse. Why would you want to stay in a relationship, regardless of your sex, where you're being abused? And I just want to, I don't mind pissing you off out there, but I do think we have to be really clear that abuse is not just physical violence, sexual violence, it's verbal violence.
Emotional violence.
Yeah. And so when we say don't tolerate being abused, it goes full circle to where we were at the beginning of this episode of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Your woman's not going to respect you if you don't. So abuse, in this case of verbal and emotional violence, is disrespect ratcheted up Spinal Tap fashion to 11.
Right. And so the ultimate goal of all of this, of knowing your worth and being comfortable enough in your own skin to be non-reactive, is that you no longer need external validation to feel good about yourself and to feel good about how you're walking through the world.
Yep.
You become emotionally self-sufficient. And to close the loop on where we started with the discussion about feminism and women and girls, the gap, and where, how men and boys are declining relative to women and girls, is we have a lot of men that, fall into the same kind of victim narrative for themselves.
Right.
That that's wildly counterproductive. And so when you know your worth and you're comfortable in your own skin and you're emotionally self-sufficient, if you can overcome anything. You can absolutely overcome anything. There are always opportunities out there for people, regardless of sex, regardless of skin color, regardless of any other identity based on an immutable characteristic, that are comfortable in their own skin and that know their worth. There's always somebody that's willing to hire them, and if they can't find somebody to hire them, they can start their own thing. There are endless opportunities for that. There are endless opportunities to create a fulfilling life, a fulfilled life. That's the goal. The goal is not, I'll just say there, that's the goal, is for each individual to create a fulfilled life. And what we're talking about is building up the foundation that's necessary for anyone to have a fulfilled life. That's the way. And so I'll say this as a challenge to the men in my groups. I've said this before, that especially these days with all the silly gender wars going on right now, in the culture wars going on right now, that in some ways the most important measure of a man is his ability to stand comfortably, non-reactively in the face of feminine upset. And this has been like a mini masterclass in exactly how to do that.
Yeah. And because we live in a meme obsessed culture right now, I gave this example, and you and I are the only one that would probably remember this. But I gave the guys last night an example. If you want a visual example of what we're talking about, go on to YouTube. And do this after you subscribe to our channel, by the way. Go on to YouTube and search Maxell, Maxell, man, commercial. And it's, it's we're older guys, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen anything like that since that commercial in current times. Anyway, just watch it. And it doesn't involve a woman, but it does involve a man embodying exactly what Mark and I are talking about as he's getting hit by a wall of musical sound from, and I had guys, oh man, I felt so old. Maxell, never heard of that. Good thing I didn't mention BASF or TDK. Anyway, to show how in the face of a hurricane of any kind, when you know who you are, you're unfazable. You can't. One of our more spiritually enlightened terms we've used in the past is being unfuckable with.
Unfuckwithable.
Unfuckwithable, thank you. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Unfuckwithable. So if all this has resonated with any of you watching, or if it's really annoyed the shit out of you, our invitation is first, make a comment. Tell us what you think about it. Tell us where you think we're off. Tell us if what we just shared has been useful. Ask us questions. We check comments, we'll respond. And subscribe to the channel below. And go visit our website. See what we have available. We really literally have a lot for just about anybody. So, theundauntedman.com. And thank you for watching. And things will continue to get spicier. So stay tuned.